What is identity? Most accounts say that it is an essential property that defines a man or woman through time and changes. This specifically refers to an intangible property that we all share as humans: consciousness. Your awareness, the real-time calculations of the mind from which the present and future can actively be influenced and observed, and recollections from the past, from which we derive awareness through our memories. The 17th century political philosopher and physician John Locke put forth in his theory on memory that the self, our identity, extends backwards into our past actions and thoughts. This unbroken chain helps influence the development of our identity, and this is where I began on the quest to decipher my own identity as Sun Zulu. The Zulu name itself originates from a tribe of people in South Africa known as the Children of Heaven. Credo Mutwa, a Zulu Sangoma who transitioned this year, wrote the following about his Bantu ancestors in the book, My People, My Africa. The Bantu have never allowed anyone, however powerful, to distort history in any way, because by doing so they attempt to deceive the gods. Telling your story is a social responsibility, and that starts with your history, your memories. Credo's people were united under the Zulu name in the 18th century, and during this time the military prowess of Shaka Zulu helped establish their way of life. This identity, in which manhood is defined through serving the Zulu army, is what the British sought to destroy in the Zulu-Anglo War in order to steal their land, use their people as cheap labor in mines for diamonds, and effectively erase their history. The plan completely backfired though, because the British suffered an embarrassing defeat by the Zulu under Ketshwayo at Islawana in 1879. This was when the Zulu people and culture entered the American consciousness at large. American press published stories about the Zulus' fierce and courageous reputation, and this persisted long after the Zulus' eventual defeat by the British. Opportunists such as William Hunt, known as the Great Farini, capitalized on the public's curiosity and paraded Zulu people in circuses and shows at venues such as Madison Square Garden and all around the world. They did this to appeal to white supremacist views of black inferiority regardless of nationality. While Hunt bought authentic Zulus who shared their culture and eventually started lives and had children with American people, unscrupulous businesses would recruit African Americans to pretend to be Zulus and reflect ignorant stereotypes that removed the humanity from and made the Zulu name a slur or capitalistic tool by the early 1900s in America. By the 1893 World Columbian Exposition in America, capitalists mixed faux African American Zulus with actual Zulus for demonstrations of diamonds from the Kimberley mines in South Africa. A story circulated in the press that 200 Zulus commandeered a train for Chicago over a dispute with lost property, and the legend grew even more. Zulu crews in New Orleans were organized by African Americans inspired by these exploits, but would evolve into a Creole-inspired carnival that bore little similarity to the Zulu culture other than in name, but became a strong social commentary on white supremacy and overcoming the negative stereotypes of Africans and people of African descent through rebranding. A story to arise from the 19th century is also the true account of a man named Colonel W. Mallory, an ex-slave whose Zulu father was captured by Boers and taken to Mozambique, where he was sold to Spanish enslavers and taken to South Carolina. Mallory was born in North Carolina in 1825. He escaped to freedom in Canada in 1860 and revealed his heritage in a published book called Ex-Slave. It was in this book where, while recalling his life, he expressed his desire to avenge his family's treatment by the Boers as his reason for enlisting. He eventually became a colonel in the army. Mallory was born in 1825, which predates the 1880 Zulu contact in America. It shows the diasporatic effect of slavery in removing men, women, and children from their homes in Africa. Those who were lucky to hold on to the traces of their identities survived by blending these values and identities with the enslaved already in America. and the Zulu are a strong example of this. This brings us to the late 1970s and the blooming hip-hop culture in the South Bronx, New York. DJ Kool Herc was the first to bring hip-hop to the world, and this inspired many people from New York. Africa Bambaataa, a DJ from the Bronx River Projects, saw the power Herc exhibited through the use of music and had an idea. There are people, such as David Byrne, who claim that music works because creators draw from predetermined and opportunistic circumstances, no matter how much passion is involved. Bambaataa is on record stating that seeing DJs like Herc, the 1964 movie Zulu, and a trip to Africa as a high school student inspired him to take the Black Spades gang and transform it into the Universal Zulu Nation. This last claim is from an interview with Steve Knopper of the Chicago Tribune in 2011. It is interesting to note that if it was before the establishment of the African Tourism Association in 1975, then it would be highly unlikely that this visit included South Africa, especially given the political climate of the time. These influences of Black consciousness, protest through song, and a desire to carve an identity that goes against the stereotypes of Africans will be what the now disgraced Bambaataa used to make a mark in hip-hop. Artists such as A Tribe Called Quest, Kool Moe Dee, Ice Cube, KRS-One, Lil Wayne, Public Enemy, and more routinely gave respect to the Zulus, and this in turn completely changed what it meant to be a Zulu through a hip-hop context. This has seemingly come to an end, however. As of May 26, 2016, Africa Bambaataa has left the position as head of the Zulu Nation due to multiple child sexual abuse allegations dating back as far as the 1970s. Vice posted an expose in October of that year entitled Africa Bambaataa allegedly molested young men for decades, but Bambaataa has yet to respond in any meaningful way publicly, and is unlikely to face charges because of a New York State statute of limitation. Growing up, this and Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom are what placed South Africa into my consciousness, my memories, and my identity. D. Watkins, in his book The Cook-Up, acknowledges the influence hip-hop played on young people growing up in Baltimore. He recalls memories of his big brother Bip trading Big, Pac, Nas, and Jay-Z lines as they sold drugs under the glowing street lights at night. The way hip-hop weaves itself into our lives and identity is almost ritualistic in nature. When I found myself in Chicago in 2012 and needed to remember who I was, the Zulu identity is what came to me, as it reminded me best of my own big brother spinning records in our Baltimore home. The allegations against Bambaataa have not ruined this memory. They have only strengthened my resolve to share with the world that I love hip-hop, and I first received that influence because of the Zulu. In magic, there's a type of levitation illusion known as Asrah. It gives the appearance of floating in air, which can symbolically represent the journey to define one's own identity. What starts out as an illusion becomes indelibly marked in the minds and hearts of viewers. This in turn influences their identities through their memories. There will always be elements that, through nature or nurture, we have no control over. Often though, this is the framework through which creativity is born. The intrinsic value of creativity is that it comes from that intangible part of us that is seeking to understand the world around it. This is how I came to understand identity. And this is why I am now known as Sun Zulu.